Hello, welcome to the Flute 360 podcast, where we incorporate a panoramic view of flute-related topics. I am your host, Heidi K. Begay, and this is episode 118, What to Expect from a KinderFlute Teacher Training Class, Part 1.
After completing my degrees, I knew it was time to really grow my business. I slowly began to get more and more students in my studio, but I wanted to make a big change and I wanted to teach even better. That's when KinderFlute came in. I went to KinderFlute training, and in those 3 days, I learned more than I'd ever learned in my degrees, ever learned in my life. It was amazing. I met wonderful people that I still keep in touch with, and we share ideas to this day. It is a wonderful camaraderie and an absolutely wonderful experience. You will learn more than you can ever imagine. If you're still thinking about it, stop thinking and just sign up for training today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Flute 360 podcast interview. Today, my two wonderful guests are Kathy Blocki and Molly Shortridge. Welcome to the show, ladies.
So good to be here.
Hi. Good to hear you.
Hi. How are you, ladies, this lovely morning?
I'm doing fine. I went out for a run already, so I'm all energized and ready for this interview.
Nice. And you, Kathy?
It's been lovely. I've already watered my flowers, so everything's looking good. The deer didn't eat too much overnight, so it's all good.
Nice. Oh, I'm jealous you have a deer.
Oh, Molly, she's jealous of our deer. We will send a couple thousand to you to eat all your plants.
Okay. Oh, shoot. It sounds more like the squirrel problem we have here in Texas.
We have them too.
Yeah. Oh, shoot.
But Pennsylvania's overrun with deer for sure.
Oh, interesting. My uncle lived out in Pennsylvania for a very long time. I think I went out there once when I was a kid, but ever since then I have not been back. So I'm dying to go back out because it is such a beautiful state.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
We'd love to see you here.
Oh, yes. I'll invite myself out anytime.
Sounds good.
So before we get into today's content, I just want to remind the listeners that there are 3 episodes that I have already conducted with Kathy Blocki, and those are episode numbers 43, 90, and 91. And I mention those because, especially with episode 90, Kathy Blocki and I really dive into KinderFlute, and that is going to segue beautifully into today's content. So check that out if you have not already. And speaking of today, I want to hone in on the details and the organization and just the overall information that you need to know about the KinderFlute Teacher Training Class. So that's today's topic. But before we get into that, I would love to introduce and get to know Molly Shortridge a little bit more because she is a new guest on the Flute 360 podcast. And so, Molly, if you could be so kind and share with the listeners who you are, I would love that.
Yes. Hi. I know I already said hi, but here I go again. So yeah, I am a flutist and went to Temple University and studied under David Kramer of the Philadelphia Orchestra. And I also became a music therapist. I added that on to performance. So I have a lot of my music therapy experience has sort of made me feel at home with the KinderFlute method, and in terms of the creativity and looking at each child and developmental stages. And so in learning how to segue from one activity to another in the KinderFlute has really fit with me in terms of ease. So I didn't have an education training in music education. So I look at everything from a therapy perspective. So that has been very helpful. And I currently run a musical arts center, and we have over 20 teachers in the arts at our center. I'm one of the co-owners of it. We have 2 of us, which fell into my hands, and I sort of had to reinvent it as it fell apart. And we reinvented it to this, and it's been very wonderful experience. So being surrounded by musicians, studio is there. I teach about 50 to 60 students a week. And so, and I started the KinderFlute Academy is the name of my business, but the KinderFlute program is basically what it is. And so that has really made my studio grow. So I have to say it was eye-opening for me how I could teach young children, but then that also helped me teach all my older kids as well. So that's been a great experience. So basically, in a nutshell, what I'm doing right now and some of my past.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing. So, Kathy, the listeners have had the experience to hear from you, but if you could give us a short bio of who you are in case there's somebody out there who does not know you, I would welcome that.
Sure. So I've had the privilege of studying with some fantastic teachers. When I was in high school, I studied with Bernie Goldberg at the same time that he was spending his summers with Marcel Moïse. And so as a high school student, I studied the 24 short studies and the 25, and it was an incredible experience. I felt like I was almost getting them firsthand from Marcel Moïse, but that really shaped me as a musician and a teacher, and then went to Samuel Barron, and he's such a lovely, logical person, and I learned so much from him. Again, that's reflected in my teaching. From there, I went to James Pellerite, and he is the master of pitch and rhythm, and you'll see that also. I think rhythm was my weakest area, and it was very enlightening studying with James Pellerite. He helped me so much. And then I played with several orchestras in the Fort Wayne Symphony and the American Wind Symphony and the Chautauqua Orchestra, the festival orchestra there. And then did my graduate work and then started doing a lot of teaching after that and decided that I fell in love with teaching.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. But that's amazing. And you know, Kathy, from our discussions, I love hearing your history about Samuel Barron and James Pellerite. I think it's such a rich history. And we are so fortunate that you have been passing on their legacies through your teachings, but then with your own creative twists and who you are as a person.
Yes, the whole journey has been very exciting.
Very cool. So episode 90, we talk about KinderFlute. And I don't want to get into all the KinderFlute topics from episode 90 because, well, that's episode 90. But with a very quick summary, can we talk about what is KinderFlute in order to just lay the groundwork?
Well, first of all, we are passionate that all the kids achieve their potential, but not just in the area of music, in all areas. So teaching them how to learn, and often parents are observing, and I feel like I get so many comments from parents, this is interesting. I should interact with them that way also. So I think that's highly effective. It's game-based. So our goal is to keep their alertness very high because whenever you're playing a game, repetition can become a lot of fun. So that's very, very important. The ideas of repetition, intensity, and duration are key, and that's derived from a lot of the information I had read, the Study for Human Potential, that I was actually researching. I have a disabled daughter, so I was doing a lot of research on brain development, and I find that philosophy of short durations and lots of repetition, and then that intensity is that passion, so that whenever you see a kid just so excited about their doing and so intense into it versus, I've got to do it again. So it fires their brain. And the whole thing with movement, I was intrigued with the book Spark by Dr. John Rady, and he's a physiologist from Harvard. And his studies have sparked all kinds of research. And now you'll see a quick burst of energy, how it lights up the brain. And he talks about ways that quick burst of energy can light up the frontal of your brain. And he calls it miracle grow. And I've seen parents just amazed that we do this really fast activity, and then we sit down and do something quiet, and how attentive they are. They're just kind of shocked. Like a child that, this was even online, a child, he's a 6-year-old that has ADHD, and he was having trouble with his medication. This is just 2 weeks ago. And I said, okay, let's do 10 jumping jacks. Ready? While we sing the penguin song. And we did that. And then he calmed right down. I think the parents were amazed. So the interaction, the importance of that move and that action and how it gets the brain ready to learn. Also, this action we want to instill in the teachers, just that philosophy and how we set up the classes, how we organize the classes, but also how the organization is that we use the games to instill internal beat and so much more. But let me have Molly. She's been such a wonderful partner. She's just passionate and creative. Let's have her give some input too.
I think what you did is lay out a framework for teachers to use, but give them the creative power to go ahead and start looking for ways to reach the goals that you want students to reach using your Blocki method book. And at the same time, the teachers get creative so that they get excited because here they created their own game based on this song or activity that needs to be done on the flute, such as maybe learning to tongue. So if the teachers can start brainstorming their own ways, then the teachers get more excited. And then they start looking in toy stores and they're seeing completely new ways. Oh my goodness, there's a game I could probably incorporate into one of my classes. That looks like fun. So every time a teacher creates something new, it creates excitement. And I think it wears off on the kids. So if you don't keep creating something new, it can get boring for the teacher. And I think that boredom then transfers over to the kids.
No, that makes sense. I love it. So is there anything else about KinderFlute that you ladies would like to share before we dive into the teacher training class?
Yeah, I was just going to say that sometimes at conventions when there's a curved flute on a table, a lot of people walk up and say, oh, this is a KinderFlute. Huh. And the name KinderFlute is so out there, everyone knows about it, but they're not quite sure what it is. So it's not the actual flute, it's the method.
I love it.
And I'll just say that we've been working on the Blocki flute method books are not going away by any stretch of imagination, but there's also a new series called the Flint Zoo that we are so excited about. Colorful, and the kids, they're going to be a shorter series of books, including a lot of the same songs, but sometimes in a slightly different manner. And the kids will be able to finish the 32-page books more quickly and feel like they're moving forward quickly. So that's a new development that we're very excited about.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, you were talking about Flint Zoo and lots of colors, like you said, the red, the blue, the green, and each color being associated with a pitch.
That's for the start of it,
okay.
For the head joint. And then we move on from there. It is very colorful with the Flint Zoo. A lot of the drawings are by Molly. She's just so talented in so many areas. And they're delightful. And I think they're there to instill and inspire. And I think that's exactly what they do, the color. So it's all very, again, very, very, very purposeful. And I find myself, I just can't help myself. Molly was saying that we're not stagnant. And I find this with the teachers. I feel like whenever they come, they think, oh, I'm not creative. And then they find out, oh, I do have that creative spark. I see it over and over again. But I have a hard time just standing still and saying, this is the way we do it. Kind of the way my mind works. It's because that's why there's 5 editions of book 1. I keep on saying that we're done. But as I'm doing the Flute Zoo, I think, okay, this is an area that they still have difficulty with, or how can I do it better? How can I make this possible? And I just need to throw in, and we're trying to instill in the teachers that they are lifelong learners and the children are lifelong learners. And just like Molly said, we're part of it is that spark. Like like the book spark to be growing all the time. But let me just share something I found intriguing. This was at the NFA. Wally Kujala came up to me and was saying, I like your embouchure. And this was just a few years ago. And then he said, I'm thinking of changing my embouchure. And he was showing me something. And I don't even know what he said after that, because I was just in shell shock. That first of all, here's this 80-year-old man talking about wanting to change his embouchure a little bit, and that he's humble enough to ask me. So I don't even know beyond what he was saying as far as what he's going to change. I was just thought, I'm going to carry this forever. And I use that example with my kids whenever I was introducing a little bit of different double tonguing with some of my seventh graders that I heard Paul Edmund Davies YouTube, and I love it, changing the vowel sounds, so not just do. And some of them were a little reluctant because they've been doing it the same way for so long. And I gave them this. I was like, here's this man he's older and he's always learning. It's just such an example. And that's one thing that I'd like to be thinking of instilling in everybody.
Yeah. No, I needed to hear that because, at 33, when I finished my DMA, I decided to get braces. And I'm in Invisalign right now as we speak. Sometimes I lisp. And these past 2 years have been so frustrating because I'm like, I should have this by now. And I have to constantly tell myself, like, it has to be a choice. I have to say, no, Heidi, you chose to, fix your teeth for health reasons. And that's great. Guess what? You don't know how to play with braces because you've never done it before. And so with this, and what it's piggybacking off of what Kathy said, like, here we're always, you're laying the groundwork to say you're always growing. You're not too old to grow and learn. You're not, there's always somebody better than you. Like Wally Kujala, played with Chicago Symphony Orchestra for how many years? And here he is saying, oh, I really like your embouchure. I want to change it. I mean, that's Wally. He's one of our forefathers, you know what I mean? Yes. And so for him to say that, it's like, it gives me a breath of fresh air, and like, it gives me room to say, it's okay. Like, you're not going to figure out how to form an embouchure with braces overnight. There's going to be room for growth and beyond the Invisalign. And, that can be applicable and be applied to so many different areas of our lives. And that's so incredibly good for us to instill that into our students because they need to know that.
Yes. And I think every adversity we have or any difficult child we have, I think we just grow. So I think learning how to deal with that Invisalign, that firsthand experience is going to be incredible. Mm-hmm. And I know I had such a difficulty getting a first sound, or that first year, 2 years, it was all air, having to sit and figure it out actually by myself. This is many, many years ago. I think all those things shape our background and our, especially adversities and the difficulties, shape us hopefully into better people and better teachers.
I love that. So from this game-based activity that you designed, Kathy, at what point did you decide, I want to train other flute teachers to get certified within this method?
Well, at first, I was doing some short training sessions for Blocki flute, just talking about the multiple octaves and how we have this comprehensive rhythm method of filling in the notes. I've been doing that for maybe 4 years, and usually just the day before the NFA started on site. But then I started experimenting with the young children, and part of it is because I had moved from Indiana, where we were professors at Goshen College, and I had all the students I needed. I just tons of students. And before that, I had even though we were living in a small town, my husband was a band director, and I had tons of students. We brought in 2 more flute teachers because I couldn't handle them all. So then we moved to Pennsylvania, and the market was saturated. And the only students I was getting were students who already played for several years. And so I couldn't really teach them from the beginning with my method. And I found that really frustrating. So I started experimenting with younger and younger and younger children. Like a 7-year-old, I found out, oh, this is pretty easy. And we can start right from the beginning, and they can be so much further than trying to undo bad habits. And then I kept on doing younger, and the youngest she was almost 5, a 4-year-old. And that when you start teaching that young, you start having to really think creatively. And so it started with the blowing of the papers, and that those paper wads become a really big deal of blowing in KinderFlute. So after doing that for a few years, I thought, this is successful. I had Suzuki training before and had not done a lot with it. That was for years before, when I was teaching at Goshen College. There was one year that they paid for me to do Suzuki and some Dalcroze and some Kodai, just a wide variety of training. I didn't get, like in the Dalcroze and Kodai, and that I didn't get certified in it, but I explored courses in that. And I think all that shaping also brought forward the ideas of KinderFlute. So then I thought, it's time to start sharing this. And I think the first class was about 8 years ago, and KinderFlute has come so far since then. There's so many more games, and the philosophy that I learned with Spark and including the really active activities had only begun then. Now it's in full bloom.
I love that. So when did you decide, Molly, to take the teacher training class? What year was that?
I think it was 2013.
Okay.
And then I did go back. I think Kathy invited me. I was trying to think why I went back a second time.
Okay.
So, and I know Kathy does encourage people that have been there once to come back again. Yeah. And Kathy, I'm not sure why you invited me. I don't know if you remember. I think because I did start the program so quickly right afterwards. And I think it was just something you said. You just were interested in that, I guess, how I got it going so fast, my own program after that. I didn't expect at all when I first went to become certified. I just saw this. I had been using the Blocki flute method for ages. And then I saw this training class come up, and I said, well, that sounds like something I would like to at least know how to teach a 4-year-old. I want to know how to do that. That sounds kind of interesting. And so that's what I thought I would just do and gain some knowledge on that. But when I went, I was flabbergasted with the actual program that we were supposed to set up, like Kathy laid out for us, if you want to become certified. And I thought, well, I guess I'll get certified then. So I decided that after I went to the class and set up my program that way.
Very cool. So, Kathy, in our conversations, you have mentioned that your KinderFlute and the teacher training program is different than the Suzuki course. Can you please explain those differences?
First of all, I have extreme respect for Suzuki, and I loved when I went to training and Toshiya Takahashi was there, and I thought he was a wonderful, wonderful person. When I went to Suzuki training, I had already been teaching a long time, so I already had a lot of ideas formed. I found the spitting rice intriguing, but I also was in the process of developing the Numa Pro. And so that's one thing that's different. We don't spit rice.
Okay. So
this is a little... Again, within some teachers, this is almost like talking politics.
Oh, sure.
To spit rice or not to spit rice. So we love each other, and we're all within the diversity of the flute community. We all love each other. But the KinderFlute is not in the rice spitting, and Suzuki is. But we have had Suzuki teachers come and train, and a lot of many Suzuki teachers use the Numa Pro. And I ask, I'm a little surprised to go, no, we do this. So there's an overlap there. And the reason I don't do the spitting of rice is because whenever you tongue, it's most noticeable whenever you double tongue. It's harder to get a beautiful sound. And if you have the Numa Pro, it becomes obvious that the air tends to rise. and that makes it more difficult to get a beautiful sound. So we concentrate on just the poo, Winnie the Pooh, to keep the kids from giggling, and just getting that air column down where it needs to be and relaxing and blowing the paper wads and having lots of fun with those games. We find it to be very effective. And once that tone is established and they can hold a note for about 3 beats, then we teach them, I call it slur tonguing, where they're using the numeripros and do, 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 like I like to tongue, do, 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 do. So the air continues. So it's more of a legato tongue. And then we introduce like a staccato tongue after that. They normally pick that up very quickly. We're late with the tonguing. We tend to be very early with the double tonguing because it seems like the earlier you start that, the easier that it is. We both starting on B, A, and G, which I think is great. With KinderFlute, we'll hold the end of the flute to balance it. We want to start with.
Okay.
Like the foot joint or the little end, depending upon what type of flute you're using. So it's a little more comfortable. We tend to move a lot more. So though I think the idea, Suzuki idea where you trace the little mat and where your feet go, I think that is very helpful to get them in a right stance and have a place to go back to.
Okay.
After you move, so let's go back to our places. And everybody has I cut up little yoga mats and trace their feet to have a place to go to. I think that's very helpful. And that is more Suzuki.
Okay.
The other big difference is the multiple octaves. We start with multiple octaves right away. One of the first things I do when I'm teaching tone is to show a video of a 4-year-old who accidentally gets all 3 octaves of the flute.
Wow.
On her second lesson, just accidentally. And I often ask band directors if I'm teaching them, how many of your trumpet players accidentally get a double high C. It doesn't happen. So we shouldn't be teaching flute players the same way that we would teach a clarinet player or a trumpet player. It's different, and it's not, the higher octaves aren't difficult. They're just a little different. And a lot of the kids play those upper octaves by accident, or it's more easy for them, especially the really young children. I was really surprised that these young children tend to play higher because their lips are so small. And so it's harder to get them to play lower. So that was intriguing, but we're set up so that they can play about the first 25 pages in both octaves with the same fingering. I'm talking too much, but the 5-note patterns are incredibly important, and the fact that we read notes right from the beginning. Okay. So we read notes and we read rhythms, and the 5-note patterns are a huge part of what we do. So that's how it's a little different.
No, that's good. And I think I just wanted to bring that up in case there was somebody who was, considering one or both or, whatever. And I just wanted to put that information out there. Great. Thank you. Molly, do you have any experience with Suzuki at all? Because I want to make sure I include you before I go on to the next question.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Could I go back up to why I asked Molly back a second time? Of course, I often find teachers, they come back the second time and they feel like, they say the first time is a little bit like drinking from a fire hose because there's so much information. But with Molly, I think all the KinderFlute teachers are special. There's something very special in her ideas and her passion. And it's obvious is very, very gifted as a teacher. She just has this passion and drive. And we've talked about it together, often what makes a great KinderFlute teacher. And there's different aspects of that, but she certainly has that underlying gift also.
Oh, how kind.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.
Well, it's true.
But I think it also it goes down to the fact that the heart is there for who the child is. Who is that child or person, adult, whatever, in front of me? Who is that? And the ability to observe that in every lesson, like what they are bringing to me in every lesson in terms of mood, or, you can just see things on their face. So can you adjust some of what you were thinking for this student so that it allows room for them to be who they need to be and also learn at the same time So it's kind of looking at the whole person. And I think, and Kathy and I both talk about that, the KinderFlute method allows you to do that. It's a group, and it can be a group or it can be individual or a combination. But the group, even in a group, you can still take the feeling of the energy at that moment and then switch it to a new activity if you see it's just not working. So
learning how to be flexible.
Yeah. But it comes from the heart. I mean, because sometimes I think in your heart, you just don't want to be flexible as a teacher. I mean, I'm sure we've had teachers like that, where you just have a system and you feel like that is going to work for everyone, and it really doesn't. So I think that's just so important to look at.
I think Molly's especially gifted at that. And I think this goes all the way back to some marriage counseling, but becoming a student of your spouse, but being a student of your student. So you're always learning from them. I feel like my students are always making me a better teacher. And whenever they have a difficulty, I feel like, oh, it's an opportunity for me to grow.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. When my seniors graduate and they say, oh, thank you so much, Dr. Begay, for teaching me for 7 years. And I instantly will say, no, thank you for teaching me, because I was a totally different teacher by the end of their, junior high to high school career compared to when I started them in the 6th grade. And so you're right, like we grow with them, we learn with them, and there's nothing better. This concludes episode 118, part 1, with Kathy Blocki and Molly Shortridge. Please tune in Saturday, June 27th, 2020 for episode 119, part 2, where we will continue and finish this discussion. Today's sponsor is brought to you by J&K Productions. Did you know that not only are they a production company for podcasts, but they are a recording company for musicians? Any musical recording needs that you may have, J&K Productions can fulfill that need. They have all the necessary equipment and expertise to record your next flute recording for college or graduate auditions, competitions, summer festivals, or a flute album. J&K Productions can record any setup imaginable, from solo flute, small chamber, flute and piano, and much more. Consider J&K Productions for your next recording project. Contact them at jkproductions.media. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. For more information, please visit HeidiKBegay.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review in the iTunes store. Let's talk about flute.